Good afternoon, everyone. I am Aditi Davray, the Director of Learning Services here at Philanthropy New York, and welcome to today's program, Optimize Your LinkedIn Profile, brought to you as part of a series on professional development programming. I'm delighted to introduce one of our all-star colleagues, Tiffany Langston, Multimedia Guru at Philanthropy New York. That's obviously not her official title. That's how we know her, and she's going to lead today's session. So thank you, Tiffany, for doing this and giving up your time for us. We appreciate it.
Hi, thanks for coming. Thanks for spending your afternoon or the end of your afternoon with me. A couple of things before we get started. In this presentation, I have used my own personal LinkedIn profile because it's easy. That by no means that I think that it is perfect or it's like the end-all be-all. It's just a suggestion. It's something that works for me. I'm no LinkedIn expert. I use it a lot. I feel like it is an underutilized social media resource, and therefore I fully expect for someone to ask a question that I have not got the answer for, but I'm going to write it down, and I will get back to you. If I don't have it, I'll make sure that we find the answer. Also, you're going to learn a lot more about me and my personal work background than you probably ever wanted to know, because you're going to pretty much see my LinkedIn profile from beginning to end. And we're going to touch a little bit on free versus paid, but everything in the majority of the presentation is going to be on a free basic account. So it'll be all options and things that you should be able to find, regardless of whether you pay for a premium LinkedIn profile or not. Okay, so we're going to start off with an icebreaker, but I promise you it's going to be painless. If you did not sit down in front of a note card and pen, all I want you to do is write down a couple extra. What is your main reason? All I want you to do is I want you to write down on the note card. Looking for a job, or it could be networking. It could be because somebody told you to make a profile. What is your main reason? It could be that you're looking for a job, or it could be networking. It could be have no idea, or it could be that you're not on LinkedIn at all. That's all fine. When you get done folding half and half it this way. Anything else? All right, I'm just going to read a couple. Not yet on LinkedIn, maybe like you for networking and job searching. Okay. Not on LinkedIn, get about it all the time. But we're going to talk about this. LinkedIn is great for a lot of things, but one of the things that it does do is it searches your contacts, and people will invite people based on their contacts, even if they're not actually on LinkedIn, which can be annoying for your friends who aren't on LinkedIn. Professional networking, stalking others professionally. We're going to talk about that. Was looking for a job, not just networking. Similar group interests. Looking for a job, more common than not to have a profile. Okay, so I kind of you to, like I would say, who's on LinkedIn? Raise your hand. Or who's looking for a job? Raise your hand. The thing about it is nobody's business. Like I would say, who's not on LinkedIn? And LinkedIn for all of its great things, and LinkedIn for all of its really great things will tell everybody the first thing we're going to talk about, unless you tell it not to. So the first thing we're going to talk about is privacy. It's not working. It's not working. Things not working. Clicker's not working. Okay. No, it should work now. Yeah. move, but I can't make it go. We apologize for these technical difficulties.
Why don't you go to the...
Wait, no, Crystal, that's the one I put on before. Like, there's like the other one. that was my test one from earlier, and that's not. No, it's not right. It's not the right one.
Is that the right one?
Yes, that's it. All right. Okay. All right. So on your profile, if you look at your profile page, on the right-hand side, you'll see that thing up at the top, right? Right. It says Notify Your Network. And what that will do is that is set to yes. Every time you make any change to your profile at all, it's going to tell everybody in your network. And you know, everything from you joined the board to you changed jobs to you became friends with a recruiter. All of these things, nobody's going to notice. I typically always set it to no, because if I wanted to promote or talk about something, I would actually use like a post. You know, hey, look, I got this job, sweet. But to be perfectly honest, it's nobody's business. And I really wish that LinkedIn would have this default set to no, but all of these things are default set to yes. When you go to your settings and you go to privacy, there is a section down there, a little red arrow. It says turn on off your activity broadcast. This will not only, so the one on the right is just about when you make changes to your profile. Your activity broadcast is when anybody makes recommendations, you make recommendations for anybody, if you change your profile or if you follow companies. And there's a little note at the bottom that LinkedIn says if you're looking for a job, you might want to turn this off so your employer doesn't know that you're looking for a job. Or if you just would like to keep certain things about your, your life private. Okay. So when you are on your profile, right below your picture, there is your LinkedIn URL. If you hit that little gear, it'll take you to your public profile. And along the right-hand side, you will see all of the things that you can make public or not make public. I have everything public because everything on my LinkedIn profile is something you can find in the first page of Google results if you Google me. And so put on secret. Where I'm in college, where I work, all of these things are very easy to find, therefore I put them on my LinkedIn profile. I'm very open and transparent on this particular network, more so than just about any other one. But if you aren't like me, and that's fine, you can click and you can take off every single section of LinkedIn. You can click check or uncheck. The only things that you cannot change are your name, your headline, and your geographic location. And we'll talk a little bit about those in a second. But I think because LinkedIn to me is a professional networking site more than it is a social media site, and I think that it should be designated as such. I think it's better to be open than to hide things, but I'll leave that up to you if you've got, if you want to close off some of that stuff, you can do that. And it's pretty, once you open up your public profile, it's pretty easy to find sort of where this lives, and you can customize what people see, or you can make it so that nobody can see your profile at all. So if you were to set your profile to visible to no one, then they will see your name, your headline, and your geographic location, and then there will be a big box that says, log in to see this person's profile. Because public means two people who aren't logged into LinkedIn or two people who are not connected to you through LinkedIn. If you're logged into LinkedIn and you connect with someone, they can see your profile. Public is just for people who aren't logged in. LinkedIn stalking. So LinkedIn gives you three options when you look at someone's profile. When you look at someone's profile, they can either see your name and your headline and your location, i.e. at the top. That's how I do it because I'm not ashamed. I look at people all the time for a variety of reasons, and this is about you can also do anonymous profile characteristics. So they'll say, website manager in the philanthropy industry from greater New York City area, and that offers some anonymity, or you can pick to be completely and totally anonymous. And this is an overriding function, so there are a couple of other places on your profile where you look at that, and this is going to be the overriding set. This will be the one that will take over all others. If you do that, then it will take off all of your stats, so you won't see who's looking at you either. Another reason that I think that this is a good thing to have is because it is super helpful. A lot of times people, like if you're looking for a job, if you're interviewing for a job, the people who you are interviewing with like to see the fact that you were looking them up. It shows diligence, right? And research. So if you're on LinkedIn so you can look at like how well your ex is doing, maybe you want to go for the anonymous for that. I don't know. But I mean, for professionally, I don't see an issue with it. But I mean, people do. So that's where you find it. That's where you find it. In case you want to do that in your private when you go to your settings. I'm sorry. When you go to your general settings after you log in. So this is what. So when you every time that you look at someone else's profile on LinkedIn, LinkedIn logs that. When they go to their profile, they can see who's looking at them. This is how you appear to others when you look at their profile. So those are the basic sort of privacy controls and toggles that will help you sort of lock down what people see and what people see when you look at their stuff. Now we're going to talk about the different parts of the profile, and they're going to be in order of importance based on my own personal opinion. For those of you who do have a LinkedIn profile, who has a photo? Okay, good. Photos, very important. I think also too, you know how earlier we were talking about when someone tries to connect with you on LinkedIn. Anybody who doesn't have a profile, a photo. So I know that if I try to connect with someone who has a photo, that means they're actually on LinkedIn. They're not just combing through contacts trying to get more people to log in and make a LinkedIn profile. Your picture does not have to be a professional headshot. It should kind of take up the same amount of room that a headshot would, but as long as it's in focus and relatively recent, it doesn't have to be one that you actually pay someone to take. You can take it on the iPhone as long as you have someone who knows what they're doing. There are a couple of exceptions, right? So sometimes people like to show them in their work environment or behind a post conference, or I know for a fact that ASPCA, their standard headshots have them with their pets, and that's just something that they do. In fact, for the most part, you want people to be able to see you clearly. This is also really helpful if you're having a business meeting or a business lunch with someone you've never met, or in an interview situation. It helps people to know what you look like when you see you out in a crowded lobby or in a restaurant or something like that. And it's good to be relatively honest on your picture. I mean, there are some people who say, oh, I don't want to put my picture up because I don't want them to discriminate against me because I'm a woman or because I'm, an African American. But I'd rather know that at the outset than to get all the way to the interview process and then have them look at me and go, if that's what leaves me out, then I don't want to work for them anyway. The next thing I want to talk about is your headline. It's the thing that comes directly under your name. A lot of times people will use their current title. I think that's fine. What is interesting about this is that regardless of whether or not your profile is public or private, people are going to see this. You only get 120 characters here. This is less than a tweet. And if you're trying to catch people's eye, they're going to know when they click on your profile that you're the multimedia manager at Philanthropy New York. So I like to use this space for skill-based or role-based descriptions, right? Because even though I do digital strategy and do content create and I do write, I'm not utilizing my public relations background here, but I still want people to know, especially if I'm looking for a job, that I do have those skills and that background. And so I think it's a little bit better to talk a little bit more about yourself and to give a snapshot about your major sort of professional skills. That makes sense. I know many people who do use their title, and if you are really proud of your title, go right ahead. Perfectly fine. Another thing is your public profile URL. So I have mine set to linkedin.com/in/ and that's where you get the sort of vanity part. I use Tip Langston. It's a shortened version of my name. I mainly use it for consistency because across all of my social media and social networking platforms, I use the same screen name and therefore the same sort of vanity URL. But also it makes it really easy to remember. And if you're giving that link to someone to look for you, having that be your name makes it easier for them to relate that to you and for them to remember you, and that's where you sort of live. The next, to me, most important part of your profile is summary. You can do this in a lot of ways. I like, because there's a good chance that if someone comes to your LinkedIn profile, this is as far as they're going to get. And so I like to use it as a sort of quick snapshot of this is what I do, these are the things I'm really good at, here are the tools, the software, and the major job or career skills that I have to offer. I like to be quick, I like it to be simple, and I like it to be comprehensive because a lot of times they're not going to go past this. And if anybody here does not have a summary, regardless of whether it could even be just a couple of lines about what you do, major initiatives you're working on, or things you've done in the past, or major accomplishments. But if you don't have a summary, you are giving up the opportunity to catch people's eyes really quickly. And to be perfectly honest, if they don't make it to past this point, you want to at least be able to know that the very first thing that they saw past your name and your picture are the things that you do and the things you do really well. And like I said, you don't have to use this particular format. It just, it works for me. You can do bullets. You can do a couple of short sentences. Don't make it too long. And also you can use it to summarize sort of the actual parts of your experience, but don't take everything that's in your current and past positions and just slap it up there, in a really long form. That's not what it's for. Make sure that it is quick and that people are going to be able to get the information that they need in case that's all they get from you, is your picture, your headline, and that. Okay, experience. You should put it up here. If you don't have it, you should. And again, you can do this in a few different ways. So a lot of people like to do bullets. I have bullets on my actual resume, and I think of this as a place to, because for the most part, if you apply for a job, you're going to give them your resume. It's going to have bullets. So I don't want to repeat that here in case they're coming here as well as looking at my resume. And we'll talk a little bit about this more when we get to the job seeking part of LinkedIn. But when you apply for a job on LinkedIn, you always give them your resume in addition to them sending your profile. So you don't want it to be a word-for-word copy. You want to make sure that you're taking this time to sort of at least add a few more details. It can be additional bullets or bullets that are supplementary to the bullets in your resume if that's how you have your resume. Also, you can write incomplete sentences, but I think of them as a waste of space. I could always say that I strive to make Philanthropy New York, but they're going to know from my cover letter that I can write in full sentences. I don't have to do it here. I like to use action words, and I like to start my they're not sentences, they're my clauses or phrases, and get to the point quicker because I don't have them for very long. I think that you should have at least your last 3 positions or last 5 years if you're sort of early to mid-career. If you're looking for C-suite exec positions or you want to work for the government, they're going to ask for your last 10. And if you have more than that, that's fine, but those are the ones that are the most important. And especially if you're just getting started, take your current position and then list the rest of them, but your current position needs to be fleshed out. That way, if someone comes and sees, they want to see what you do now, then this is a good place to start. And you can always add in stuff later, but you want to make sure that you have an accurate and true representation of your work history. That way, even if you don't have a whole bunch of information, you at least have it on record that this is what I've been doing for the last, however many years of my career and my work experience. Oh, yeah. And you're always going to start with your current experience and work backwards. And if you have a long work history, and that's totally fine, if you've changed career paths, then it is okay to not go, like if you are changed career path mid-career and you're doing something different now than you were doing before, it's totally okay to stop your work history, but be prepared to explain that when you go into your interview, or just list, title and date, your name of your job title, your organization, and the date. And you can just use years if that's fine too. Or if you have a long work history, I would say the last 5 or 10 years, or last 10 years, and then you can just list if you don't want to go through. It doesn't hurt to have additional details, but I don't think it's really necessary. Most people aren't going to go that far back anyway. Education. So there are a couple of rules of thought here, right? Like there are several people who did something different for undergrad that they did for grad school. If you have pivoted and done something different, or if you went to business school or you got your MPA or you went to law school after the fact and you don't want to include your undergrad because it's not something that is relevant, you should probably do it anyway. They're going to know that you went to undergrad because you have a graduate degree, but it's still a good idea. As you can see, as far as like your descriptors, right? Like I like to include that I was an honors graduate because it makes me feel special. And you can see that when I got to grad school, I gave up on life. A lot of times people will ask, should I put coursework in? If it's relevant to what you're doing, yes. Should I put my GPA in? If it's not 4.0, don't worry about it. Some government jobs will ask for that, but I don't. If you have a 4.0, by all means. I didn't. It's not up there. And I would include activities and societies that you feel are relevant. I was on the debate team, and I was very good, so don't get in an argument with me. That's what that says. Also, one caveat to that, if you've done additional coursework, like you didn't get a degree but you got a certificate, or you did some executive work, you did some business classes, and you want to list those separately, I think that's fine, especially if it's something that's geared towards what you're accomplishing now or trying to accomplish. Another thing that people want to know is, should you include your year? Because that tells people how old you are. There's a rule of thought that if you're over 40 that you don't include the year. I haven't gotten there yet. Obviously, you can do the math. And I just don't care. It's pretty easy to find out when I graduated college. If you graduated before the advent of social media and the internet, and that's perfectly fine, and you don't want to include the year because you don't want to be discriminated against because of your age, I think that's fine. It's really a personal decision. So. They can see, yeah, they can absolutely see if you're not a young person. And like I said, there are a lot of positions that want you to 10 or 15 years of experience. And I think if that's the case, and you need to draw that map, like, oh, you're trying to get a C-suite position, you need 15 years of experience, then you need to have a year here and have 15 years of experience. So it really kind of depends on what your goals are and what you're sort of aiming to do. I'm checking the time to make sure that we're doing good. Okay. All right. This is one of the things that I think are really important that not a lot of people are doing, and it's recommendations. Now, people can recommend you based on a specific position, right? So my last job, I worked at the Memphis Convention and Visitors Bureau. I have 2 recommendations from that job. The job before, I worked at the Memphis Zoo and Aquarium. I think that it's good to have at least 1 recommendation for every job that you have listed with detail. So if that's 5 years, 10 years. I also find that it's a lot easier to ask for a recommendation when you're on your way out. Oh, thanks, it's been so great to work with you these past 3 years. Would you mind writing me a recommendation on LinkedIn? Because if you ask for it beforehand, people might think that you're looking for a job. So, I mean, you can, if you have good friends or people that you work with that aren't going to ask questions about why they're writing your recommendation, to fill it out, that's fine. But it's really good because they don't have to be very long. And you can also nudge them, too. So if you click the Ask to be Recommended button, which in your recommendation sections will list all of your recommendations and then will have Ask to be Recommended, it will take you to a portal where you can pick, okay, I want to be recommended for my job at the Memphis Zoo and Aquarium, and then you can put the person in and you can send them a note. Hey, can you recommend me, and can you, specifically talk about that work we did on the mobile app? Like, you can kind of guide them so that they will talk about maybe a project you did, an initiative you worked on. And what's also really good about this is that it will allow you to review that recommendation before you put it on your profile. So if they say you suck, then you don't have to put it up there. But if they say that, then you obviously ask the wrong person for a recommendation. You can, but I wouldn't put it up in the first place. Right. And I think that, so I see a lot of profiles that have no recommendations, and these are like baby reference letters, right? Like people, they can talk about how awesome you are, how great you are, what you do that's good at your job, and it's different than endorsing for skills, which we're going to talk about in a second. It gives you the ability to have a little bit more detail, but they don't have to be very long. And I find from recruiters that I've talked to that they come to this section a lot. So if you don't have recommendations and there are some people at your previous positions that you feel comfortable with to ask for them, I think they're great. Your recommender does need to be on LinkedIn. And it can be anybody from a supervisor, a coworker, someone who you worked with on a board, someone you volunteered with. All of those options will be available when you go to the portal. It'll say pick a position, and then so it doesn't just have to be your boss. Like if you're not cool with your boss, that's fine. Pick somebody else. All right, skills and endorsements. I think this section looks really cool. It is kind of useful in the fact that you have picked the skills that you think that you do really well. And people can endorse you. Give you a thumbs up. Say, yes, I know that this person does these things really well. I find that a lot of the endorsements I get from people, they don't know that I can do those things very well. But you should definitely pick some skills, and you should be very honest. It's also good etiquette to return the favor if someone endorses you for something, but only do it if you know they're good at that job. Because I have seen recruiters who will click that, contact you, and ask you if that person is really good at video production. And it gives some examples. So if you don't know, don't do it. Also, there is the ability for you to suggest a skill for people. And I have had people who are trying to tell LinkedIn that I'm great at journalism, and I'm not. I've never been a journalist. Whenever someone endorses me for that, I just ignore it. If it's a skill that you have not already said, LinkedIn was like, would you like to add journalism to your profile? No, I wasn't a journalist, and I don't want anybody to think I was. So, yeah.
Go ahead, finish.
So I want to make sure that everything here is something that if called upon to offer not only examples but explanations of how you do this, those are the things that you need to put here. And it doesn't matter if you have 20 or if you have 5. If they're 5 and they're good and you're solid on those, then do that. Yeah.
Hi, Tiffany. So I'm just wondering, the skills and endorsements, I find it hilarious how people, endorsed you on YouTube.
Yeah.
So do people actually look at these endorsements and, does it say something about you professionally? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So they endorsed me for YouTube because I have been a person who managed a YouTube channel for a business. And since I did that, and I can explain sort of specific projects and stuff that I did, that's why it's included there. I think it is kind of interesting that people endorse me for Facebook. I'm really good at liking things. But there are sort of professional implications and aspects to that, and that's why it's included. It's, like I said, I think for the most part, it looks cool. And then I do know recruiters who have used it, but they don't take any of this on faith. They're going to ask. So it's important, not as important to me as recommendations. I think those are much more important. And if you're splitting, you're trying to figure out where to concentrate your efforts on, and getting good recommendations is much more important than this, because this is very easy. I just got to click the button. Like if someone comes to my profile, they can click blogging, Facebook, editing. As you can see, I have some people who've endorsed me for 10 things. And that's fine, but it's not, I don't think it's as indicative of your skills as getting someone to write you a good recommendation about a specific project or past work experience. Okay, so those are the things that I find to be like essential. Now we're going to talk about optional stuff that's good if you have it. Volunteer. I figure this is probably a group that volunteers a fair amount. But even if you volunteer in stuff that is not applicable to your current job or jobs that you want, you should definitely include it. The reason I say this is because people like to know that you give your time and energy to a cause. Another cool thing about the volunteer section of LinkedIn is that if you're looking for a specific opportunity, right, you want to do skills-based volunteering, you want to be on a nonprofit board, you can tell LinkedIn, hey, I'm looking for these things, and you can pick the kind of stuff that you want to talk about, arts and culture, children, civil rights, and then LinkedIn will pair you with nonprofits who are looking for volunteers like you. So if your volunteer section's looking a little thin, then make sure that you have listed a couple of opportunities that you're looking for and some causes that you wouldn't mind to champion in using your skill set. Publications and projects. So in grant making, there's a lot of reports and things. So if you have been a part of a report, you are a co-writer, co-author, you helped gather the data, anything like that, you can count that. You can also, so when you do, that can fall under publication or project. I would most likely put reports in publication, and then projects maybe being an initiative that you worked on, or a speaker series, you did a program, those kinds of things I would put under projects. And you can also name other people. So you don't, even if you didn't write the report, you can tag people and say this person worked on it, this person worked on it, and then make sure to clearly identify what role you did play. You don't want to take credit for other people's work, but you want to get credit for the work that you did do. And like I said, this is optional. If you aren't on any publications, if you haven't done any projects, that's fine. But a lot of things I think will count that you may not know. So if you want to, after this is over offline, if you want to talk about some things that you're working on and whether or not that counts as a publication or project that you can put on LinkedIn, I'm happy to have that conversation, or we can do it by email or whatever. All right, connections. Who do you connect with? This is an interesting question, because I'm sure that everybody here who has a LinkedIn profile has gotten a connection from someone you have no idea who that is. And as a personal rule of thumb, I don't connect with people that I have never met or talked to in extensive email communication. But if I met you at a conference, if we talked after a P&Y program, if we have had email conversations, I'm pretty easy about accepting those connections and trying to make those connections as well, because LinkedIn is about networking. You can't network if you don't have connections. So for me personally, I'm pretty loose with my sort of where I connect with people on LinkedIn. Like I said, it's very different than most of my other social platforms. But you should definitely, if you only want to connect with people that you've met in person, shook their hand, had conversations with, worked with, that's fine. And just know that your net is only as wide as you allow it to be, and you can only network as far as you allow it to be. But if that makes you uncomfortable, then by all means, connect with who you feel comfortable connecting with. And just know that I know of people who have gotten job opportunities by their second connections or their third connections. People who aren't connected with you but are connected with people who are connected with you, seeing their profiles. Because someone might like something about your profile or a post that you did, and that shows on their connections feeds, and they can look at your profile and see that you might work really well for a position that they have. It's usually a recruiter trick, but we'll talk about a little bit about it. A lot of recruiters use this platform because it gives them the most bang for their buck. All right, LinkedIn Premium, to pay or not to pay. LinkedIn has four types of premium accounts. They have networking and branding. It's usually for someone who owns their own business or is trying to build a brand, like you're a motivational speaker or that kind of thing. Sales, specifically for salespeople looking for leads. Recruiter, and job seeker. So I'm not really going to touch on the bottom two. I don't think that they're necessarily applicable in this instance. Is anybody here in HR or recruiting? Oh, good. We'll skip that one too. So job seeker, because there were more than one of you who said looking for jobs. So LinkedIn's really good about providing you with a free month of job seeker. And they're going to ask you for your credit card, and then after the end of your 30 days, and they are good about sending you an email saying, hey, your trial's about up. If you don't want us to charge you $29.99, you should cancel this. I appreciate that because, and I have actually used JobSeeker. Before I worked at P&Y, I lived in Memphis, and my husband was here because he had already gotten a job because he works in the tech industry, and I majored in the wrong thing. But he was here, and I was in Memphis trying to find a job here while not living here because I had a house and a mortgage and things like that that I'll never have again. And so I paid for JobSeeker because it had a lot of benefits. We'll get into those in a second. But yeah. So another thing too is you can get a free month and then you can cancel your month, and then LinkedIn will send you emails like, hey, we're going to give you 60 days of JobSeeker Premium for free if you come back. So you can get up to 3 free months if you just wait it out a little bit. If you get your free month, cancel, then they'll start trying to get you back. And a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm looking for a job. Like, I don't have $30 to spend on this every month. And that is a legitimate concern, and I understand. So here are the things that you need to know about JobSeeker and whether or not it is right for you. So JobSeeker gives you a couple of things that regular basic LinkedIn users don't get. First of all, it's going to allow you to go back and see who looked at your profile for the last 90 days. Whereas for a free user, you only get to see the last 5 people, whether they were today or within the last 6 months. Recruiters, people who are working in HR and onboarding at companies that you're applying for, you can see if they're looking at your profile. They're usually pretty open. They're not going to hide themselves from you. So that's something that's kind of nice to see. Another thing it's going to allow you to do is going to allow you to send direct messages, or what LinkedIn likes to call in-mail, to people who aren't connected to you. That is not something you can do with your free account, but you can do with a paid account. You can send up to 3 direct messages or in-mails to recruiters or people who aren't your connection. So if you see a job, and a lot of times recruiters will put, their name or their LinkedIn information there, and you can contact them directly. That's not something you would be able to do with a free or basic account. Here's the part that I really like. 2 things. One is that when you apply to a job through LinkedIn, you are going to be put at the top of the list, so that when someone who's a recruiter or someone who works in HR is looking at here's a list of candidates, everybody at the top are going to be paid, everybody at the bottom are going to be free. So if you have a job that you really want, if they're like, they're going to look through 10, 20, 40 people, and there are 200 people that have applied, you want to be at the top of the list. So they don't do it by when they received it. They do it by paid or not paid. So it gives you the opportunity to jump to the head of the line. The thing that I like the most about JobSeeker Premium is that, so free LinkedIn, you can see how many people have applied to a job. With Premium, it's going to take the aspects of your profile, your education, your numbers of years of work experience, and it'll compare it to the entire applicant pool. And it will tell you, you are in the top 10% of applicants for this job, or you're not in the top 50%, because everybody at this table knows that looking for jobs is hard. It takes a lot of time and energy. So I'm not going to typically waste my time applying for a job where I'm not going to be the top half of the applicants, especially if there are a lot of people there, like, who've applied. That way I can concentrate my time and energy on things that I'm going to be well-suited and well-qualified for. In order to make this work, you are going to need to be really in the hustle. Like, if you're not sending out applications, you know, several times a week, don't waste your time. And if you're not doing the majority of your applying through LinkedIn, it's not going to be helpful for you, because a lot of the aspects that you get from paying are going to be if you apply through LinkedIn. Now, that is to say that if you click on, so sometimes it'll allow you to use the LinkedIn application box. Sometimes it'll say apply through company website. Either way, it doesn't matter. As long as you click that button, that counts. So even if you don't apply through the LinkedIn portal, it will still count, and it'll still. But if you do apply externally, it's only going to count the people who click it, not necessarily the people who finish the application. So those numbers aren't necessarily as accurate as those people who allow you to apply through LinkedIn. But if you're not doing the majority of your work through LinkedIn, it's probably not going to be worth your $30 a month. And if you're not doing a lot of hustling to try to get a new job, it's not going to be worth your time and your money. 440, yes. All right, great. So this is my information. That is my LinkedIn profile. You can connect with me. I will accept the connection if you're looking to build your network. And yeah, anybody got any questions? Yeah, we're gonna use the mic. That way the people on the live stream can hear you.
Okay. My name is Dan Friday. You can call me Daniel too. This is my second day in New York. Yeah. So it's great because I try to find this way using a GPS on a phone. I'm a fellow at American Express Foundation. I'll be managing a group there called American Express Leadership Academy. So I wanted to ask, I should be sending out, say, invitations and some announcements every week on LinkedIn group. So is it possible to be able to enhance the group so that I'll be able to send some attachments through the group?
Okay, so you have a LinkedIn group, and you want to send messages with attachments. Okay, so the short answer to your question is no, mainly because there's a lot of liability when it comes to attachments, and LinkedIn doesn't want to fool with it. So if you're not sending a resume or something that has to do with like job items, they're not really hip on attaching things. It takes up a lot of space and bandwidth and gives the ability for you to pass malicious software and things through their system. Any other questions?
How long does it generally take for people to respond if you're applying for a job?
It's a good question. So LinkedIn has a couple of different ideas about this. One is that they really want you to do some legwork, right? So let's say in a hypothetical situation, you've applied for a job and you have LinkedIn Premium. So they suggest that you apply for the job, and then if you see, because LinkedIn does a really good job of telling you who posted that job. They're going to be in the upper right-hand corner of the job posting. They want you to actually reach out to that person and say, hey, I just applied for this job on LinkedIn. Can you tell me a little bit about, you know, the position, the background, what things you're looking for? They want you to actually reach out, and like they say that in order for you to get the most out of LinkedIn, you have to be really proactive. Another thing that LinkedIn does that's really kind of cool is when you apply for a job, they will actually send you an email when it says that your job application has been viewed. Now, they say, we're not making any promises, right? We are not going to promise you a job or anything like that, but your application has been viewed, so be on the lookout in case they're coming, they want further information or to talk with you further. It really sort of depends. I've had situations where it's been a couple of days. I've had situations where it's been a couple of weeks, and for anything with the government, a couple months. Yeah.
I have a question. So regarding just connections and how many connections you have, do employers really, do they look at how many connections you have? Does that number really matter?
That's actually a good question. So LinkedIn's tops out at 500. At the point in time in which you have more than 500, it'll say 500 plus. You could have anywhere from 500 to 5,000. It's just going to say 500. So a lot of people think that the magic number is 500. But to be perfectly honest, when people are looking at your profile, unlike Facebook where they might want to see how many friends you have, nobody really cares how many connections you have. That number, just that number alone, is not a factor that most people are going to look at to determine whether or not you can do a job properly.
Is it sort of quality, not quantity? So if you have senior level managers who you're connected with, does that help at all versus, you know, so quality versus quantity kind of?
Sure. That is, I think, so most of the time, they're not going to go through and look at the people that you're connected with. Now, if those senior level managers are writing you recommendations, that's a whole different story. Or if we're talking about presidents of foundations, things like that, perhaps. But for the most part, I don't think that they're going to look at specifically who you're connected with because they don't know the strength of that connection. And that's the thing about LinkedIn.
Tell us a little bit about separating your volunteer board experience from your sort of professional experience.
Absolutely. So there are a couple of things. There are some board members in certain instances that get paid. So if you get paid, you can definitely put it under your work experience. Or if it is a board that is going to be connected or related to the work that you're doing, like if you're on a board of a nonprofit that's in your funding area or foundation, that kind of thing, by all means put it in your professional experience because more than likely they're not going to get farther than that. If it is a board like for a nonprofit that doesn't necessarily fall within your career path, then maybe I would put it under volunteer work. And I would also say that actually brings up a good point because a lot of people want to know, especially people who are early in their careers, what to do with internships. If you're just out of school and internship is the only work experience that you have, put it as your work experience because a lot of people, that totally counts. I think if you're a few years out, then you might want to move it to, not for volunteer because, well, let's hope you got paid, but to put it under your school work. But if you had a internship with, like, if you worked for a judge or you worked for a high-profile business person through, you worked when you were getting your MPA or something like that, most definitely put that in your work experience. Things that you think will, if you worked for or with someone that's going to be a benefit when people are looking at your profile, then by all means put that in the work experience as sort of in the main part of your profile. Yeah. Yeah, so groups, interests, and companies you follow. These are things that prove that you're not a robot, right? So they also fall at the bottom of your profile when people are looking at it. So it's not necessarily, as far as being viewed for a job, something that people are going to look at. But you should join groups with who are going to talk about things that are important to you. Like I'm members of social media marketing groups, communicators in New York groups, things like that, because that's important to me. There's a lot of questions about, what media monitoring service do you use or what are good consultants or vendors. And those, I think, are good for networking, but also for answering questions that are related to your role. So I would find groups that interest you, either on a personal level, things that you like to do, or on a professional level. And another thing about that will be kind of interesting is that whenever someone writes something in your group, it will send you an email. And if you are in a group with communicators, it will send you multiple emails in a day. And you can set that to come as a daily or weekly digest or to not send you emails at all. That way you will only see them when you log in to LinkedIn.
So I noticed on there that some organizations have logo images. should we be, if our organization doesn't have a logo image on LinkedIn, should we urge them to create a LinkedIn profile? How important is it to have that?
Okay, that's a good question. So yeah, anytime that you reference an organization on your LinkedIn profile, whether it be in your work experience or in your volunteer experience, if that organization has a LinkedIn profile with a photo, it will show up there. A lot, especially in nonprofit and foundation world, there are a lot of people that need a lot of things and they don't have a lot of capacity. So I would suggest that, and I don't think it hurts to create a profile. A lot of times people will use their LinkedIn profile to make updates to their network, people who are following them or their organization. So I think making one is fine. It's good for SEO and things like that. And adding a picture is great. It makes everybody who references you, their profile look better. But as far as being really active on LinkedIn on a professional level, I think that depends on what your goals are, the people that you're trying to reach, and how much time you have to do those sorts of things.
So I just want to come back to the experience section. You said that, in your opinion, you would perhaps go into more detail or elaborate some of the points that are on your resume. So go into more detail on LinkedIn. Is that a sort of general standard that one's resume now would be a one-pager of XYZ, and then you would sort of go into more detail on your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, I actually know plenty of people who include a link to their LinkedIn profile on their resume saying, for more detail or for more information, go here. Because you have, there's a couple of rules of thought about resumes. Some people say they should be only one page. Some people say 1 to 2 unless you have a CV or you've done a lot of research. You work in academia where you can have these multiple page CVs. And I think that's the case for the most part, mainly because especially if you have some beleaguered, overworked HR person who's combing through hundreds of resumes to fill a position, they're only looking for key things anyway. That's why I personally use bullets on my resume, and then I use something like LinkedIn to sort of flesh that out. That way, if they want or need more information, they can find it there.
Boy, we have a lot of questions in this group, right? Crystal and I. So can you tell us a little bit about the influencers and adding influencers, and how do you, does that really impact your overall profile, if you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so influencers are people who spend a lot of time putting content on LinkedIn. A lot of times they will post articles, they will post either stuff that they wrote or even, things that they didn't, studies and things like that. These people have a lot of followers on LinkedIn, or people who are following them particularly are following. So a lot of social media marketing people, a lot of communications people, reporters and things like that are going to be influencers. They're not going to have any impact on your specific profile. That's just going to talk about what shows up in the feed, the news that you read on LinkedIn. So you should follow an influencer if they're talking about stuff that you're interested in. But if you're not following influencers, it's not going to affect your actual profile.
Clearly, I'm not that active on LinkedIn, but just for personal business cards, is it appropriate to include your LinkedIn link on there?
Yeah.
Recommend that?
Sure. That was easy. I would say that if you're going to do that, make sure that you have a fleshed out and complete profile. Don't just do it if it's empty. All right, great. So, 5 minutes to 5. We're going to get you on time. Like I said, there's my email address. If you have any questions, want to do any follow-up, feel free to email me. And thank you for coming and spending your time with me. Appreciate it. I hope you learned something. Oh, and if you are new to LinkedIn, I have a get up and running on LinkedIn in 15 minutes or less, 7 steps if you want it.